So in our last video, we restored this Evans trigger light, and it works great, but it's a little bit dull, a little bit dirty, and so I wanted to make a video about polishing vintage lighters. When it comes to polishing, there's kind of two routes you can go. There's hand polishing and there is mechanical polishing. So the big difference between the two, obviously, is one is mechanical in that you're using a machine, whether that is a buffing wheel on a Dremel or a buff and polish wheel on something like a bench grinder, which is what I have. You're always going to be able to achieve a much higher mirror-like shine with a mechanical buffing. However, if you have a lighter that is not solid metal, but rather is plated, you most certainly are going to run the risk of wearing off the plating of your lighter. And in fact, let me show you guys exactly what that looks like when it happens. So here I have this cool 1980s Zippo Slim, and as you can see, all those areas where it's silver, that's supposed to be gold. This is what happens when you run something that is metal plated through a mechanical buffing wheel. It strips the plating right off. So you may be wondering, well, how can I achieve a pretty close to mirror-like shine by hand polishing? There's a lot of products out there, but what I'm going to do is share with you what I consider to be basically my secret method on how to achieve a really high shine on really any metal, but a vintage lighter in this regards, by hand polishing. And then I'll also do just a real quick tutorial on how to mechanically polish as well. So the first product that you're going to need is lacquer thinner. Now, lacquer thinner is extremely of a very potent solvent, so you may be hesitant in putting it on an old antique or vintage lighter. However, it is perfectly safe. It is perfectly safe for all the metals you're going to encounter on lighters and their plating. You're not going to harm the metal. So it has a very high astringent quality, meaning any types of grease, oil, fingerprints, it's going to lift those and just completely evaporate them and just strip them away. And then also, it's really good for just general cleaning of these metal lighters also. On like a Q-tip or something, because it's a solvent, it breaks a lot of gunk down very easily. However, this is not the big secret. The big secret that a lot of people haven't heard of before is this product right here. This is called Neverdull Magic Wadding Polish. So what this is a tin that is full of cotton wadding that is soaked in, I don't know what, to be honest with you. I guess it's magic. Now I'm sure I could read the label. I can't be bothered though. And this stuff can achieve a near mirror-like shine on metals, even though it's doing it by hand. That being said, to achieve a new shine on metal, I don't care what product you're using, there's always going to be some degree, whether very minor or not, of abrasiveness. This is no exception. If you really bear down and just use all your strength and repeatedly buff and polish with this in the same place over and over, you can still strip the plating off of your item. However, as long as you're gentle and don't stay in the same place forever, this works perfectly fine. And so the way that you would do this is you would start by using lacquer thinner to get it completely clean, free of all oils, grease, fingerprints, etc. Then you'd come with your Neverdull and give the whole thing a very good buffing. Now, the reason why I'm using lacquer thinner in the first place is because this stuff leaves behind grease, and it is very oily, very greasy. I dare say if you didn't have something like lacquer thinner, you'd probably never get it all off. So yes, it will shine it very well, but it's going to leave it greasy. So then you come back to your lacquer thinner again to finally clean it and reveal the polish that you've done. So in addition to lacquer thinner and your Never Dull, you're gonna need some gloves. I like to use these gloves here from Harbor Freight, and I use these primarily for the Never Dull because if it gets on your fingers, it is just so oily and greasy, and you're gonna be dropping everything. And then you're gonna need a couple of cloths. I like to use an old t-shirt, so you wanna have two of them. One for applying and removing the lacquer thinner, and another for kind of wiping off the excess oil from the Never Dull. So let's go ahead and go through the process on this lighter because, as we can see, it already has a lot of spots that are where the gold is faded and the silver is showing. So I already know that this thing is plated, and we're not going to be able to mechanically buff it because it's just going to ruin it. So let's start by seeing how this process works, and then we'll do a quick tutorial and example of how you can mechanically polish as well. So to begin, we'll do a good all-over cleaning with our lacquer thinner. I like to put my lacquer thinner, just a little bit of it, into a little glass like this because you don't need a lot. A little bit goes a long way. And I keep it in something metal because if this gets on the desk, it's going to eat away a lot of the coloring, as you can see here. And so this process is pretty simple. All I do is I take my first shirt, dip a finger or two in, and literally just start going over it. There's really not a special technique to this. And so the first time we're doing this, like I said, is just to strip any and all oils, grease, whatever it may be on the lighter, and you're kind of prepping it at this point to be ready for polishing. So we've got it wiped down real well. Already it's looking shinier and a little bit cleaner. So now we're gonna glove up. And once we get our gloves on, we'll go ahead and tear off a pretty small piece of our Never Dull Magic Wadding polish. There we go. That is plenty. And again, there's really nothing special to this. Just using a light touch. You don't need to really bear down on it, and in fact, you can ruin it, like I said, if you do. You're gonna just start buffing and polishing. To be fair, it's really more about I would say, the speed than it is how hard you're pressing. So I'm just gonna slowly start going all over all the surfaces and come right back. Okay, we've given it a good polish. As you can see though, there's little fuzzes and hairs from the cotton. There's grease all over it. And one thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to is you'll notice that there's these dark grayish green spots in the Never Dull wadding. And what that is, as you begin to buff, and sometimes this happens dramatically and sometimes, as this is an example, a little bit more minimally, but as you begin to buff and polish with this, you'll notice it starts to turn this kind of grayish green color. That's quite literally impurities lifting up and off of the metal into the wadding. So once an area starts turning kind of a dark color, sometimes pitch black nearly, you want to move to a different part of the cotton. Don't keep using the exact same spot all over. As soon as it starts to turn gray, move it a little bit and use a fresh, clean white part of the wadding. But that being said, our job is just about done here. What I'm going to now do is wipe off the excess Never Dull grease off of the lighter, give it a wipe down once again with the lacquer thinner, and then I will reveal the results. And so here are the results of my polish job. As you can see, we have achieved quite the mirror finish on this lighter without mechanically buffing it and risking losing any more of the gold plating than was already lost from, I guess, its life before I got it. But yeah, 100% feasible to get a near mirror finish just with hand polishing. Looks absolutely gorgeous. So now let's quickly touch base on mechanical polishing while we're at it. Kind of the two ways you'll see a lot of people do this are you'll see something like a hand rotary tool such as a Dremel with a buffing wheel, or what I like to use if you have the space available to you, it makes life a lot easier, is a bench grinder with a buffing wheel attached to it. There's two kind of buffing wheels you can get. There is a style that's where, so this is called a loose leaf buffing wheel. And what that means is you see this, it's separate pieces of fabric and they're all held together just in the center, so it's kind of loose and fluffy. And then you'll see some where this is all stitched and it's a lot more rigid. The really rigid wheel, I have come to find, can sometimes just be too abrasive and risks damaging metals, at least on more delicate things like lighters and such. So I like to go with a loose leaf buffing wheel. I got this from Harbor Freight for like $5-6. And then you need is a polishing compound, which basically just looks like wax, kind of like a big piece of, like a big crayon almost, really. And I also buy this from Harbor Freight. And so the color of the compound determines what kind of metals that it is used for. I have no perspective whatsoever if these colors remain the same, if it's a standardized color system through all brands, because I only ever get this stuff from Harbor Freight. That being said, from Harbor Freight, this is the one that I go with for most of my lighters. It is a green polishing compound, and it says right up here, compound is used for a high polish finish on copper, brass, stainless steel, and steel. This is what I end up using most of the time. However, I do also recommend that you purchase blue polishing compound. I don't have the packaging anymore, but this compound is specifically for sterling silver and gold. Now again, most of the time that's plating. So even though this is for those metals, this would be for solid sterling silver or solid gold. You do come across more often solid sterling silver lighters, but solid gold, pretty rare. But so I keep this around just for those cases where it's a solid sterling silver lighter and I want to use kind of the right stuff. In addition to your polishing compound and your bench grinder and buffing wheel here, I do recommend eye protection, because as this thing spins, it throws these threads at high speeds everywhere and they can whip in your eyes and it is not pleasant. And then also I recommend that you get yourself a pretty decent pair of kind of thick, durable gloves, because if your finger lays against that wheel for too long, it'll start to burn the hell out of you because of the friction. If you just touch it, it's not going to take your finger off, but if you're sitting there holding your finger against it, you know, like you would if you were polishing something for a while, it's going to start to burn you and it's not pleasant. And so basically what this process looks like really couldn't be simpler. You will, and I'll do the talking and then turn it on, because once I turn this on, you're not gonna be able to hear anything. But
We'll turn the wheel on. Once it gets spinning full speed, we'll just take our polishing compound, and you don't need a lot, and you just kind of hold it, rub it back and forth, and you'll see the wheel turn kind of a green color as this gets dispersed throughout it. And then we'll just take our piece of metal, kind of go back and forth doing sections at a time. Once we see that the wheel has started turning kind of this black color again and the green's worn off, I'll come back and use a little more compound in between. And for the lighter that I'll be doing for demonstration purposes, I'm going to be doing this. This is a vintage Nimrod pipe lighter. I believe it is probably either solid metal, whatever it may be, or a thick enough plating that I can get away with it. And I think this will make a perfect demonstration piece because, as you probably can see, it's pretty tarnished, very dull. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, and after only just a few minutes of polishing here, you can see the results that we're left with now. Let me focus this in. So that's kind of a real-time before and after. There's a few little spots, since this kind of has a recessed area when it's opened, that I'm probably gonna do a little more touch-up on, but I won't bore you with it forever. The point is, you can see what a dramatic difference you can make by doing mechanical polishing if you can get away with it. And here are our before and after results. And as you guys will see here, the results are insanely dramatic. This looks like a piece of straight up chrome now. So I hope that you guys learned something from this video. I hope it's gonna help you polish up your lighters or whatever it may be that you're polishing. And I hope that it helped to kind of give you a difference between hand polishing versus machine polishing and when to do it. And I'll catch you on the next video.